Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of UFC Predictions. In today's video, we're going to be covering UFC on ESPN 5 coming to you this Saturday, August 3rd out of Newark, New Jersey. And for this particular video, we're going to be covering the first 4 fights on the main card. And in the second video, we're going to be covering the co-main and main event. So to all of my returning subscribers, thank you as always for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is your first time seeing an episode, thank you to you guys, and please feel free, if you like what you see, to click the subscribe button. So for the first fight of the night, we're going to be kicking things off in the light heavyweight division. We've got Darko Stosic versus Kennedy, the African Savage, Nzechukwu. Betting odds for this fight, Stosic is a minus 135 favorite. He's 27 years old, 6 feet tall, 76-inch reach, 13-2 MMA career, actually coming off of a loss against Devin Clark, which was a really close fight. Stosic seemed to sort of run out of gas towards the end of that fight. First round, very close. Stosic got the second round. End of the third round, I think he sort of ran out of gas, but he's coming off of a loss. Other than that, very solid MMA career thus far for Stosic. Kennedy, the Nigerian, also 27 years old. This dude is 6 feet 5 inches tall, and he's got an 83-inch reach. We're talking John Jones type reach advantage in this fight. 83 inches, he's got a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's 6-1 in his MMA career. He's coming off of a loss as well, this time to Paul Craig via triangle choke in the third round. So when it comes to striking, Stosic has massive power. This guy is built like a brick house, doesn't move much at all in the octagon. He sits there with his chin down and his hands up and just throws bombs. Out of his 13 victories in MMA, 8 of them have come by knockout. He doesn't have great output though. You know, I mentioned he doesn't move much. He also doesn't strike much either. He waits for his moments. He's very patient. When he does throw, he throws hard. He doesn't have great cardio though either. I mentioned he sort of ran out of gas there at the end of his fight, in his last fight. For as little as he moves, he packs so much muscle that when he expends energy, he expends a lot of energy and gases relatively quickly. If you get into a brawl with this guy, with Stosic, he's likely going to put your lights out. But if you keep your distance and pick your not necessarily pick your poison, but pick your shots with him, his defense isn't that great. You know, I mentioned he keeps his chin down and his hands up, but the fact that he doesn't move that much, jabs tend to get through his guard. He sort of absorbs any leg kick that you throw at him. He's not checking many leg kicks. He's kind of just taking them on the thigh, and same with body shots. The way that he's built, he doesn't move that much. He keeps his hands high and his chin down, but if you pick your shots, I mean, you can hit him with some good blows. And Kennedy, I mentioned his reach, I mentioned his height. He's got a good jab. If he uses those attributes to his advantage in this fight, if he keeps his distance, throws good jabs, he could have a lot of success standing in this fight. Kennedy's got good knockout power too. It's not to the level of Stosic, but he's got good knockout power. I don't want to see him start swinging for the fences against Stosic in this fight, though. I want Kennedy, if his pathway to victory is striking, if that's his game plan, he really just needs to take his time, be patient, throw good jabs, combinations, leg kicks, and he could see a lot of success standing in this fight. When it comes to grappling, though, Stosic is a judo fighter. He is very strong when he gets a hold of you. He pushes you up against the fence, and he's very strong, big, powerful knees to the gut. His clinch work is very good, Stosic, but you don't often see the shorter opponent by 5 inches have a ton of success in clinch work against somebody so much taller than them. So it'll be a little interesting to see how things play out up against the cage. Can Kennedy execute some good clinch work, throw some good elbows while he's in up against the cage, because Stosic is going to be pushing him up against the cage, this whole fight. And that's actually a really good pathway to victory for Stosic. We saw in Kennedy's last fight against Paul Craig, he lost to a triangle choke in the 3rd round. Paul Craig had a lot of success against Kennedy, taking him to the ground or kind of dragging him to the ground, and just going for submissions. He got him in the 3rd, but in the 1st and in the 2nd, there were multiple times where Paul Craig had submission opportunities against Kennedy. And so Stosic has the clear advantage when it comes to the ground game in this fight, but given his attitude, given his strength, his size, the fact that he likes to throw so many bombs standing up, I'd be surprised if that was part of his game plan. But I do think, should he go in there with a smart game plan against Kennedy, somebody so big, tall, lanky, long, that he should execute some, or the ground game should be part of his game plan if he wants the cleanest pathway to victory in this fight. So my prediction, Kennedy has all of the attributes to be a very good fighter in the light heavyweight division. 6'5", 83-inch reach. He's really athletic. He's strong. He's got a good attitude. And it seems like he's picking up MMA very quickly early on in his career. But I don't think he has what it takes. I don't think he has the experience yet to beat a guy like Darko Stosic. I think that over the course of 3 rounds, Darko hits him with bigger blows, bigger shots. I think he controls a lot of the positioning in this fight up against the cage, maybe even on the ground. And I think over the course of 3 rounds, we see Stosic come out on top. Now, this fight probably ends in knockout either way, but I'm actually going to go Stosic via split decision. Our next fight of the night, coming to you out of the lightweight division, we got Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman versus Dong Hyun Ma, the Maestro. Betting odds for this fight, Holtzman is a -350 favorite. So on the main card, he's actually the biggest favorite on the entire card. Holtzman, he's 35 years old, 5'9", 70-inch reach, 12-3 MMA career, coming off of a unanimous decision loss against Nick Lentz, which I'll touch on in a second. Dong Hyun Ma, 30 years old, 5'11", 70-inch reach, 16-9 MMA career, coming off of a TKO loss to Devontae Smith. So a lot of folks coming off losses in this card thus far. A lot of redemption possibilities that we'll see here on this card. So Holtzman, he's just sort of a true MMA fighter. He was a dual sport athlete, actually a hockey player prior to his MMA career. So he doesn't have necessarily one specialty. He's sort of trained all of it, whereas Dong Hyun Ma does have more of a traditional martial arts background in judo and taekwondo. But when it comes to striking, neither of these guys are knockout artists, but they do have good technique and good power. Holtzman, 4 knockouts out of his 12 wins. It's good for 33% KO finish rate. Dong, 6 knockouts and 16 wins, good for 38% of his wins via knockout. So prior to Scott's last fight against Nick Lentz, he came off the best win of his career against Alan Patrick, or Alan Patrick, however you pronounce it. Nick gave him a lot of trouble in that fight when it came to the wrestling. Nick Lentz is a very good wrestler. He was a former Division I wrestler out of the University of Minnesota, and gave Scott a lot of trouble in that matchup when it came to grappling and wrestling. But Scott got the better of him in the striking. Scott's got good aggression. He's got good technique. He's probably never going to be, the elite striker in the lightweight division, but I like his stand-up skills. And when he's facing a guy like Dong Hyun Ma, I especially like his pathway to victory here being crisp, concise, short, powerful punches against Dong. In Dong's last fight against Devontae Smith. Now, granted, Devontae is a scary fighter who has a lot of power and can put you out very quickly. Dong landed 2 significant strikes in that fight. Both of them were leg kicks. And so I'm not sure if he was just extremely timid fighting a guy like Devontae Smith, but Dong Hyun Ma, excuse me, did not look good in his last fight. Dong's last knockout victory came against Takanori Gomi, who is a legend in the MMA community, particularly in Pride. But he was 39 years old when he fought him, and he was coming off of like 4 losses in a row. And so it's been a long time since, in my opinion, since I've seen Dong Hyun Ma really have an impressive victory, especially when it comes to, striking. So I'd touch on grappling, but I think these guys are going to strike for most of the fight. I think Dong Hyun Ma's pathway to victory here is to try and get the finish. I simply don't think he's a good enough fighter anywhere in wherever this fight goes to beat Scott Holtzman. Not that Scott Holtzman, like I said, is the elite fighter in the lightweight division. I just think that he beats him everywhere. Unfortunately for Dong, Scott's never been knocked out. And so I don't see him getting the finish here. And so for Scott Holtzman, I think he just needs to be himself, man. There are too many ways where I just see Scott winning this fight. Out of Dong's 9 losses in his MMA career, 3 of them have come by knockout. 2 of them have come by submission. 4 of them have come by decision. I think there are too many ways that Scott wins this fight. I don't necessarily know which one it's going to be. I see this playing out in a lot of different ways, but to make my prediction here, I think that Scott shows he's the superior mixed martial artist for 3 rounds of this fight and wins via unanimous decision. So our third fight of the night, coming to you out of the middleweight division, Trevin, the Problem Giles versus Gerald, GM3 Meerschaert. Betting odds for this fight, Giles is the -165 favorite. Meerschaert, he's fought all over the place. Welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight. He's 31 years old, 6'1", 77.5-inch reach, 29-11 MMA record, coming off 2 straight losses. One of them split decision against Kevin Holland. Another one, a stomping by Jack Hermanson. He lost via guillotine choke in the first round. Trevin Giles, though, 26 years old, 6 feet tall, 74-inch reach. Former college football player, 11-1 MMA career. He's coming off of the first loss of his career against Zach Cummings. That was a 3rd round guillotine choke. Prior to his fight against Zach, it was like 570 days since his last fight. So Giles has only fought once in the last couple of years. He's been relatively inactive, but sometimes that's good for these fighters, man. Sometimes they just come into these fights looking and feeling very fresh and healthy. When it comes to striking, Giles has the advantage here. Out of his 11 wins, he's knocked out 5 of his opponents, but he moves around the octagon, sometimes dances around the octagon. Stylistically, he kind of reminds me of like a bigger and slower and less active Michael Venom Page. The way he sort of keeps his hands down, dances in and out, kind of taunts you with his head, and just moves in and out very quickly with speed and power. Meerschaert isn't a slouch, though, on the feet. He's a black belt in kickboxing, but he doesn't prefer trading blows. Grappling is his bread and butter, and I'll touch on that in a second. But, one thing that I fear with Meerschaert is his cardio. I mean, in his last fight against Kevin Holland, he was gassed early in the 2nd round. And granted, much of that fight, almost all of that fight leading up to that point, they were grappling, going for submissions, wrestling, which does take much more out of the tank than striking does. But if Giles, the longer this fight goes, the more of a chance Giles has at ending it via KO 2nd and 3rd round if Meerschaert's getting tired. So Giles' last couple of knockouts, though, have come in the 2nd and 3rd round. And so I think, the combination of Meerschaert getting tired and Giles not really seeming to lose any of his speed and power in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, I think that the longer this fight goes, the more of an opportunity Giles is going to have to get the knockout victory. Grappling, though, Gerald Meerschaert has the clear advantage on the ground. 28 MMA victories, 20 of them by submission. So clear discrepancy here when it comes to the ground game. Now, Giles is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Gerald, he's a black belt. There are levels to this game, and he's on a different level when it comes to the ground. So Giles does have good takedown defense, but I think when Gerald gets Giles to the ground, he's going to have a good opportunity there to get the win via submission. So my prediction for the fight, Giles' significant speed and power advantage standing up on the feet. That's his clearest pathway to victory here, is via striking. I'm afraid that his output is not high enough, though, in this fight. I think stylistically, Gerald Meerschaert matches up well with somebody like Trevin Giles. And I think that throughout the majority of this fight, he's going to be able to control more of where this fight takes place. And I think, over the course of 3 rounds, I think he gets him to the ground. And like I said, when he does, he's got a good shot at finishing this via submission. And I think that's exactly what he does. I'm taking Gerald Meerschaert by a 2nd-round submission. Our 4th fight of the night, coming to you out of the lightweight division, Joaquim Neto BJJ, Silva versus Nasrat Haqparast. Nasrat minus 250 favorite coming out of Vegas. So Nasrat, also known as Kelvin Gastelum's little brother or baby Gastelum. It's amazing how much they look alike. He's from Germany, born in Germany, but he's of Afghan descent. He's 23 years old, 5'10", 72-inch reach, 10-2 MMA record. So he lost his professional MMA debut and then went on to knock out his next 8 opponents before being signed to the UFC. And then he lost his UFC debut against Meerschaert, a really tough fight. He put up a really good fight against a strong BJJ black belt. But he's went on to win his next 2 fights and has looked really good since then. Silva is from Brazil, 30 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach, 11-1 MMA record. He's coming off of a 3rd-round knockout over Jared Gordon. So when it comes to striking, guys, get ready for fireworks. Both of these dudes throw bombs. Man, they've got hammers in their hands, and I cannot wait to see how this fight plays out on the feet. Extremely exciting from a striking perspective. Nasrat, though, he's a southpaw with huge power and huge speed in both hands as well. Big power and speed. It's elite. Even in the stacked lightweight division, I don't think there are many guys. There are some, but I don't think there are many in the lightweight division who can match Nasrat from a striking perspective. He's just so dangerous from all angles in both hands, and he's got that like lion heart, that killer attitude where he's not afraid to get in a brawl, and he's in there to do business and to take your head off. But Silva's no joke either, man. This guy throws bombs. I mean, his last fight against Jared Gordon, if you haven't seen it, extremely exciting fight. Silva in the 1st round gets really hurt. Jared almost gets the finish, but Silva does not give up. And in the 3rd round, 2nd round, 3rd round, Silva's pointing to the mat saying, "Let's throw down. Let's do this." I mean, this guy's built so solid. He doesn't have an ounce of fat on him. He's really big for the lightweight division, and he doesn't back down. When it comes to grappling, I think that's where Silva has the advantage in this fight. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and as we saw in Nazareth's fight against Meerschaert, that's why he lost. That's how he lost. That's how you beat Nasrat Haqparast, is by taking him to the ground and threatening him with submissions. And so I think, if Silva wants the simplest pathway to victory in this fight, he's got to do whatever he can to take Nasrat down to the ground and execute some of his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Silva, with his attitude, with the dog mentality that he has, I unfortunately don't think he's going to do that. And I think that this fight is absolute fireworks, guys. With the sort of bombs these dudes are going to throw at each other, as we all know in the fight game, it could go either way. Neither of these guys have ever been knocked out before, but I think that changes Saturday night. I think that the first round is absolute fireworks. I think Silva loses a little bit of steam in the second round, and I think Nasrat capitalizes on that, catches him on the chin in the second round, and wins this fight via knockout second round. So that wraps it up for part one. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And be sure to check out part two, where I cover the co-main and main events. So Clay Guida versus Jim Miller, and Colby Chaos Covington versus Ruthless Robbie Lawler. Thanks for tuning in, guys.